Welcome to the Explainer. I am so thrilled you're joining me today because, well, we are tackling a foundational skill in project controls that is surprisingly misunderstood. We are going to master the Primavera P6 baseline revision process. Most planners out there know exactly how to build a schedule from scratch, but far fewer actually know how to properly revise a baseline mid-project when things inevitably change. So our objective for this Explainer is totally straightforward. You're going to learn the exact step-by-step methodology to properly and legally revise a baseline in P6.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the broken baseline problem, then move into two parts, one baseline. From there, we hit part A, prepare revised schedule, and part B, de-status the baseline. Finally, we'll wrap up with defending your new baseline.
Section 1, the broken baseline problem. What happens when reality actually hits?
I want you to take a second and really evaluate your current schedule. Think about the project you're running right now, today. Does your baseline actually still reflect reality? Because at its core, a baseline is essentially a static ruler that we use to measure progress, right? But at a certain point, after months of changes, if you're comparing your current heavily modified progress to an original outdated baseline, is that comparison even useful to you or your stakeholders anymore?
Look, when reality hits, the symptoms are super obvious. Honestly, trying to measure progress with a broken baseline is exactly like trying to navigate a modern city using a map from 1990. It just doesn't work. You start seeing out-of-sequence logic, relationships between tasks get completely unsatisfied because work happened out of order, or maybe new scope gets added through change requests, but it's nowhere to be found in the original baseline. And suddenly, you're left with completely unrealistic remaining durations. When these symptoms start creeping in, your baseline stops being a helpful measurement tool and just becomes a massive source of confusion. You desperately need a revised baseline that is accurate, approved, and defensible.
So, let's move to section 2. Two parts, one baseline. This is our essential framework.
This is the core framework for building a defensible baseline. And notice how clearly our source material defines this. It's two parts, resulting in one clean baseline. Part A is all about the planning, correcting logic, adjusting durations, documenting changes, and getting that vital approval. Part B is the technical execution, stripping actuals, applying constraints, resetting the data date, and finalizing. This right here is going to act as our structural anchor for the rest of the explainer. If you skip either part, your quote-unquote revised baseline is really just a renamed copy of an old schedule. And as we're going to discuss later, that is a huge liability.
Section 3. Part A. Prepare revised schedule. This is where we correct the logic.
So these are non-technical, yet absolutely crucial first steps. First up, you have to correct the logic. If you had out-of-sequence progress, you need to fix those broken relationships so your logic network actually flows properly again. Second, adjust your durations. You've got to look at the uncompleted work and update the remaining durations based on the reality on the ground today, not what someone estimated a year ago. Third, you meticulously document every single one of these changes. And fourth, honestly, probably the most important step, you obtain formal approval from the owner or your key stakeholders. You literally cannot just decide to rebaseline in a vacuum. It requires a formal change control process.
All right, Section 4, Part B, de-status the baseline. It's time to create a clean slate. Okay, so once you have that formally approved reality-based schedule in hand, we shift gears directly into the technical execution inside Primavera P6. This is where we take that approved schedule from Part A and transform it into a pristine, functional baseline model. The very first technical moves are straightforward, but they're vital. Step 1, save a separate copy. You isolate the approved scheduling model under the exact same enterprise project structure, or EPS, but you give it a distinctly different project ID, so you absolutely do not overwrite your active schedule. Step 2 is prepping your view. You want to add two specific columns to your layout, primary constraint and primary constraint date. Having these clearly visible is going to be absolutely crucial as we prepare to wipe all the progress from this copy. And here is where the real magic happens. We are going to strip out the actuals to completely de-status the project. Basically, we're creating a literal day zero using simple if-then logic. Think of it like this. If the resource type is material, then you set actual material units to 0. If an activity status is literally anything other than not started, you change it right back to not started. And if an activity status is not started, then you set the remaining duration equal to the original duration. You're systematically zeroing out the past to create a totally clean slate for the future. To wrap up Part B, you perform the final system resets. First, reset the data date. you're shifting that data date back to represent the brand new starting line of your revised plan. Second, recalculate the schedule. Just hit F9 and P6 so the software reruns the critical path method based entirely on your clean, actuals-free data and updated logic. Finally, do a quick review of the log to make sure there are no errors, effectively finalizing your pristine model.
Now, listen up because this is a super crucial point that is so easily overlooked. Before you officially assign your newly minted baseline, you have to check your P6 settings. Navigate up to Admin, then Admin Preferences, select the Earned Value tab, and you need to make absolutely sure you check the box that says At Completion Values with Current Dates. If you forget to configure this, P6 might miscalculate your earned value metrics against the new baseline. So this turny administrative step is exactly what ensures your performance reporting remains dead accurate.
Okay, the final software execution. We need to take that pristine, de-statused project and officially tell P6, hey, use this as the baseline. You go up to the project menu and select Maintain Baselines. Click Add, and then this is the key right here. You select Convert another project to a new baseline of the current project. You pick your clean copy, and boom. You then head over to Assign Baselines to lock the whole thing in. Just like that, your project is now operating against a flawlessly revised baseline.
Moving on to Section 5, Defending Your New Baseline. Let's talk about the professional consequences here. Look, there is a massive difference between amateurs and professionals when it comes to this process. The wrong way to do this is taking your current schedule, hitting Save As, renaming it, and just calling it a baseline. That renamed copy still has hard-coded actuals, historical progress, and lingering constraints totally baked into it. It's mathematically messy. The right way, the way we literally just learned, is building a cleanly de-statused baseline model. It acts exactly as a true baseline should, as a static, unmoving ruler against which future progress can be accurately, honestly measured. I want to read this powerful excerpt from our sources directly to you, because the stakes here are very, very real. If you just rename a copy, it is not something you can defend later. Honestly, this is one of those critical procedures that nobody ever explains properly to you until you're sitting in a room in a dispute resolution or a tense claims situation, having to legally defend your baseline against an audit. If an auditor finds actuals hidden in your baseline, your entire schedule variance analysis completely falls apart. But a properly de-status baseline, that is legally and professionally bulletproof.
So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Think back to the last time your project went through a major rebaseline. Knowing what you know now about Part A's logic correction and Part B's meticulous de-statusing process, could your current revised baseline hold up under strict scrutiny? If the answer is no, or frankly, even just maybe, well, you now have the exact methodology to go back and fix it. You have the power to create schedules that aren't just pretty Gantt charts, but rigorous, highly defensible models of reality. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to apply these exact steps the very next time your project requires a reset.